flying in off the top rope, hopefully not with a steel chair, is the New York Post legendary columnist and Vince McMahon nemesis, Phil Mushnick, who's been listening to all of that. Phil, welcome.
Wow. Hi there. Welcome to Alyx's World, a safe space for wrestling fans like you. I'm your host, Alyx, and today I felt like punishing myself. I am going to watch Piers Morgan have a debate over Vince McMahon involving ex-WWE talent. I've heard it was a train wreck, and looking at who's on here, yeah, I'm expecting a train wreck. You'll get the full highlights and my thoughts on what's going on here, but I would like for you guys to give me your thoughts on the interview if you've seen it. The link to it is down below in the description. Regardless, I hope you enjoy the video and you enjoy my suffering. Let's get right to it.
Maven Huffman is a former WWE star and now YouTuber. Jonathan Coachman was a WWE announcer and is now an elite sports analyst and host of Behind the Turnbuckle. Vince Russo was the head writer during the infamous Attitude Era of WWE. Charly Arnolt, an ex-WWE backstage interviewer and now host of Outkick the Morning on Outkick.com. So welcome to all of you. A very high-powered panel.
That boy said high-powered panel. I'm sorry, with all due respect to Maven, Coach, Vince, and Charlie. No, I don't consider anybody on this panel high-powered. This is what you get when you can't get any big names. You go to the bottom of the barrel. When I think Vince McMahon, the last person I think is Charly Caruso. I got nothing against Coach, Maven, Charlie, or Vince. The only person on this panel that I think has a shred of cred to speak on Vince McMahon is Vince Russo, because he literally worked under him. Maybe Coach to a certain extent, because he did commentary and he had Vince in his ear. So I guess he has something to say as well, but outside of those two, Maven was just a wrestler. Charlie was an announcer backstage, so her boss was Michael Cole. What is she gonna say that's any different than anyone else? This is such a weird panel.
Okay, Marvin, you were sacked by Vince McMahon.
Did he just call Maven Marvin?
The stars who have a fond view of Vince is a very transactional individual.
Right.
If you're making him money, and a lot of these stars were making him millions, he loves you. And you talked about, me getting let go by Vince, and I agree. When you see Vince backstage, he'll ignore you. If you mean nothing to him or nothing to his show, he'll pass you by and won't give you the time of day. But Vince made his bed. He's unfortunately now lying in it. I know that there's probably more to come, and like most people, I'm simply sitting back waiting for whatever is gonna unearth itself.
Okay, Maven. Okay, Tough Enough Season 1 winner. Look at you bringing some facts to the panel. I can turn this video off. He just said what needed to be said. What's there to debate? Vince McMahon loves the superstars who make him money. If you ain't drawing him a dime, you might as well be like the paint drying on the wall.
I guess that the person who could be best described as Vince McMahon's nemesis was the New York Post journalist Phil Mushnick. Jonathan, what's your view of Mr. Mushnick and all his exposés?
I will tell you this, that in my entire 13 years of being in the WWE, I never saw Phil Mushnick even try to come backstage to see what the atmosphere was like. I never saw him ask to have a sit down with any of us. And I think that sometimes when you're a journalist, especially, and you're trying to sell newspapers and you're trying to sell your column and you know that people need to read it for you to keep that, I think that's where Phil has always fallen on. And he's the one guy, because I love a good back and forth. I love a good and a bad. And I would never sit up here and completely defend Vince. But I will say that Mr. Mushnick in particular, because we used to talk about him all the time, because it seemed like every other article that he would write was something about Vince, something about the WWE. And there are a lot of good things that I got out of the WWE. I have two beautiful children that without the WWE, I wouldn't have today. I had the talent that I have, the way that I do my job, I got by learning in the WWE. So every article, I don't remember anything that Phil ever wrote that had one positive thing to say about the WWE or Vince. And if you're that kind of a writer, I don't have a lot of respect for it.
In 1991, when the steroid trial was going down and Vince McMahon was facing jail time, after, he was, found innocent of all charges, Vince and the WWE had a steroid symposium where they were going to change policies, and the media was invited, including Phil Mushnick. I went to that steroid symposium because I was media at the time. I recorded the entire symposium. Phil Mushnick, who made a living out of burying Vince McMahon, was invited, did not attend. Not only did he not attend, he wrote a story in the New York Post the following day filled with untruths. How do I remember that? Because I got on the phone with Phil Mushnick and I said, bro, and I was not working for the WWE. I was a journalist. I said, bro, you are full of crap. I have every word that was said on this tape recorder. He didn't say some of the things that you said. So again, as a journalist, I asked the question, what kind of a journalist are you if you're not going to go to a symposium you're invited to, and then you're going to report on it with false information? From that point on, Phil Mushnick had zero credibility with me.
I think we all know that Phil Mushnick was the original hater for professional wrestling way before it was the cool thing to do. You think people like me here on YouTube be hating on WWE, especially under Vince McMahon? You ain't seen a true hater until you've seen a Phil Mushnick article. That man despised everything related to professional wrestling, at least Vince McMahon's WWF. And it's incredible when you see the hate boner that man still has till this day for Vince. To be honest, it's justified. When you think about everything that Vince has done, now that all that's come to light, Phil Mushnick ain't looking so crazy. Still though, his hate for wrestling is pretty ridiculous.
Well, I was not a part of WWE when Phil Mushnick was really doing most of his dirty work.
Why is she here? I'm gonna keep asking this question because she has literally nothing to add to this conversation. I'm not expecting you to have Sable or anybody that is like a major star. You're not gonna get Trish Stratus coming on here. I understand that. But Charly Caruso, I'm sorry, I just think that's ridiculous.
But what I will say is, just by garnering a lot of knowledge throughout the course of the documentary, it seems like he was the type of guy, he definitely had it out for Vince. He would throw whatever he could at the wall, see what stuck, because ultimately there were going to be certain things that stuck. I'm sure there were certain people who would side with a guy like Phil and say, yes, I can back up your story, but then there's other people who would have the complete opposite to say. So Phil just seems kind of like one of those dirty journalists who, no matter what, his goal was to bring down Vince McMahon. And I believe that, yeah, Vince, he played the bad guy well. He said in the documentary, we all heard, there's nothing I wouldn't do for this business. I regret nothing in my life. So when you say things like that, it makes Phil's job a whole lot easier. But judging by what Phil said, I mean, there were definitely upsides to Vince McMahon, and I think a lot of people have explained it well. There are lots of stories about Vince really taking care of his people. And I also got to know that side of Vince as well. Not personally necessarily. I wasn't ever looking for personal favors from Vince, but from people that I was close with in the WWE, I heard those things.
Vince was a very nice guy to a lot of people. I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure it exists. Thank you for that great insight, Charly Caruso.
I think he found an easily attainable target, someone he could go after, someone who was big enough, large enough, ran a large enough company, a worldwide company. So he knew whenever he wrote anything, it was going to garner attention. And I'm not saying everything he wrote about Vince was incorrect. Hell, it probably wasn't. A lot of the stuff he wrote was accurate, but there's a lot of things that you just don't see on the day-to-day operations when you're working with someone, you know, on 365 days a year. And I just don't think Mr. Mushnick was ever looking for anything good out of Vince. He was only looking for the bad.
Okay, well, look, in classic WWE fashion, it's time to introduce to the Uncensored ring a surprise guest. Because flying in off the top rope, hopefully not with a steel chair, is the New York Post legendary columnist and Vince McMahon nemesis, Phil Mushnick, who's been listening to all of that. Phil, welcome.
Oh.
What? Piers, y'all had all these men and women say all that about Phil Mushnick, knowing that he was going to come back and have a response. Oh, this is gonna be good. This is when the train wreck happens. It was a little slow, I'm not gonna lie. Because coming up to this point, we're 20 minutes in, we're halfway in. I was sitting here like, this is kind of a dry debate. Where's the debate? Everybody just seems to be agreeing with each other. So now, with Phil Mushnick, the pro hater for WWE, a man that even I couldn't match when it comes to hating on Vince McMahon. Oh, his hate boner for Vince is, whew, I already know this is going to be good.
Yeah, you've been called a few things. Called a few things there by your fellow panelists. Phil, do you want to respond?
Well, look at Charlie. Charlie Caruso's like, I know this Negro did not set me up. And you know, Vince is just like, see, this is why I don't trust these people. This is why I don't have friends. Because I can't trust you sons of bitches. Oh, you know, they're pissed. They are mad. They are not happy about what Piers Morgan just did. Setting them up like that, Piers. You son of a bitch. Hey, I'm watching it though. Because you know them fireworks are about to fly. Let's get it.
The first thing I'd ask, Piers, is can any of your panelists name one thing I wrote about McMahon, the WWF, exposing a pedophile ring on McMahon's watch? Somebody who was it just said, Russo, I got 2 kids. How about the kids who were sexually abused who didn't have parents? And they were all in McMahon's purview.
Phil, we just said a lot of what you said. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. A lot of what you said
don't
is true.
Stop me.
Nobody's saying
Did I stop you? Surprise,
you brought up my kids.
You're a sellout. You're a sellout. You have no moral fiber.
A sellout. See, and Piers, this is what I'm talking about. I've never met this man. I've never met this man, and he said I have no moral fiber. He doesn't know me.
He wanted proof. Coach, he wanted proof.
Jerry. Oh my God, this fell apart almost immediately. I didn't expect it to be this bad. I was expecting a train wreck, but not like this. Is this what Piers Morgan does on a regular basis? I don't watch Piers Morgan. Oh man, let's keep going. I gotta see how far this train goes off the rails.
When you made it up, you made stuff up, Phil, 30 years ago,
keep
bro.
Shouting, because you're a fraud.
You're gonna sit there and say we haven't spoken because maybe you're senile, bro.
Well, no,
maybe
we talked a lot.
Maybe you just got out of the chair, bro. You reported on stuff that was never said.
Don't call me bro.
I'll call you whatever. I'll call you a liar then. How about that, bro? I'll call you a liar. You reported on stuff that was never said. I recorded.
You have no credibility.
You went in the New York Post.
You used to be a gay.
You was never said. Yeah, what? What, bro? I was what? I used to be what? What did I used to be, bro?
Are you going to let me speak?
Oh, go ahead. Tell me what I used to be.
You let me speak? Did you once write a newsletter about pro wrestling? Did you run once? And weren't you very, very anti-McMahon, right? I got the copies of the whole lie.
Yes, show us the copies right now, Phil. Show us the copies right now.
I take back everything I just said about Charly Caruso. Right now, she is my spirit animal. The look on her face is how I feel inside. What the fuck did I just walk into?
Anti-McMahon, my butt, bro. I was fair. I was a fair. That's why I went to the symposium to hear his side of the story, because guys like you were burying him. So I was, there's got to be another side to the story. That's why I went and you didn't go, because you didn't want to hear the other side of the story, because you had to sell newspapers, bro. You're the fraud. And you embarrassed me to call myself a journalist.
Okay, I guess the question is, as the panelists said before they knew you were coming on, whether you had a vendetta against Vince McMahon. He called you once on Monday Night Raw a self-righteous, egotistical, miserable son of a bitch. So there clearly was no love lost on his part either. But what is your genuine view?
You don't think I don't know that's a work?
Of course, but my question was...
But that's a work.
Of course, but my question for you is...
This is what he does.
Oh, this is insufferable. I can't. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through it. How much time do I got left? 20 more minutes? Y'all actually sat through all this? It's not going to get better, is it? It's going to keep getting worse.
How bad a person, in your opinion, is Vince McMahon?
Based on what I know of Vince McMahon, he's the closest thing to the fictional character Hannibal Lecter I've ever met.
Wow. A serial killer.
He's that sick.
Really?
I think he's a sociopath.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait, stop! Whoa! Hannibal Lecter? Wait a minute. Sexual deviant. Okay. Overprivileged billionaire. Okay. Hannibal Lecter. We're talking about a man that is known for not just killing people, but eating them. Now, Vince McMahon is a lot of things. One thing I will say is that he's not a cannibal. The hate radiating off of this man is next level. Phil Mushnick, I gotta give it to you. I thought I was a massive hater. After seeing how you are with him, you made me realize I am nowhere near the hater I thought I was. Compared to Phil Mushnick, I'm a saint. I'm a super kind person. Based off of what I've said and compared to what he's saying, Hannibal Lecter.
And you, Vince Russo, who used to be anti-McMahon, then you started kissing his ass because he got paid,
Phil,
and you're like everybody else.
You're not going to sit there and lie without me talking over you. You're
Who's
a liar.
Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale?
I was never pro-McMahon ever. I've reported the truth and the facts. You did not go to the steroid symposium because you
write character?
Didn't want to hear his side of it. Did you go, Phil?
Did you ever?
You
No, you're not letting.
Did you go? What, you had a lunch date, bro?
Here,
Why didn't you go, Phil?
Who's Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale? He was from Canada. His specialty was how to teach athletes to beat steroid tests.
So then why
was his
didn't you go?
specialty.
Charly Caruso is literally me right now. Why am I here? No, seriously, what are we doing here? If this is what a Piers Morgan show is, an average show on Piers Morgan, this guy's a lunatic. This is crazy. Which is probably why he has a lot of followers. This is Jerry Springer. Literally Jerry Springer. If this was what his plan was, I wouldn't have brought on Coach and Maven. No offense to Maven. I would have kept Charly because Charly's absolutely perfect. Her facial expressions say it all. I would have brought on Jim Cornette and Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette, Vince Russo, and Phil Mushnick. Boy, that would have shut the internet down. Ratings upon ratings upon ratings. Let me have it. Piers Morgan, that's what we're doing. Part 2. How much time do I got left? Oh my God! We're nowhere close to being over with this.
That was a good run-in, Piers. And in fact, I did know Mr. Mushnick was going to be on here. The only question I would have for him, and I'm not going to impugn, his life work. The only question I would have for him is, have you ever met Vince? Have you ever sat down with him? Have you ever traveled with him on the road?
We've spoken on the phone.
I'll never say everything Vince has done has landed, and I'll never say he didn't have bad ideas. He certainly did, and some of the things he did was just plain out evil. But to say he's sadistic, I mean,
why was any of it though? Why was any of it plain out evil? Why was it plain? If he was plain out evil on occasion, why are you telling me that? Oh, I got him all wrong.
Because here's what I do know.
Phil, everything he's talking about, Maven, and I'll jump in real quick. Everything you're talking about, Phil, happened before 4 of us were there and 30 years ago. And that what we're trying to give an equal, and we're admitting, all of us are admitting that everything he did was not good. But you haven't brought up one thing that happened after 1999. After 1999.
Well,
after
okay.
1999.
But here's an interesting point.
I wasn't covering.
Let me ask you, Phil. Phil, you were one of the first.
Coachman?
Well, Phil, let me just jump in a moment, Phil. Phil was one of the first journalists to expose the widespread use of steroids in WWE. Right. Vince McMahon was acquitted in 1994 for distributing steroids and won a conspiracy to distribute steroids. Were you surprised when McMahon was acquitted? Why do you think that happened? And do you give him any credit for what he did afterwards in cleaning it up?
I firmly. Piers, I believe that he was prosecuted in the wrong jurisdiction. Had he been prosecuted in Stamford, Connecticut, where all the drugs from Dr. Zahorian were delivered to McMahon, who admitted to using steroids, but he said he did them legally. Now, if he did them legally, go down to the corner pharmacist and get your steroids.
This man is still mad that Vince McMahon got off on a steroid trial where he was being persecuted for forcing wrestlers to take steroids. Well, guess what? The reason why he got off was because Vince McMahon didn't force or tell anyone to do steroids. They did it themselves. Vince had nothing to do with that. Of all the things we could have nailed Vince McMahon for, the Ring Boy scandal, 100% he should be liable for. All the stuff with the NDAs, with Janelle Grant, Rita Chatterton, all of that, lock him up and throw away the key. Why are people still to this day trying to lock him up for something he rightfully so was acquitted of? He never told one wrestler to do steroids because he knew all of them were doing it anyways. And I'm pretty sure Maven is about to say, hey, I also did steroids, and I did it without Vince telling me to do it. So let's continue watching.
Don't get it from a guy who's doing 4 years in prison, in a federal prison.
That's exactly what I did.
So he was
Mr.
full
Mushnick,
of
that's
it.
exactly what I did. I have openly on my channel admitted steroid use during my time in the WWE, and no one from the WWE made me do it. I did it all on my own, and I did exactly what you said. I got a doctor's note, I got blood work done, and I did it as safely as I possibly could, knowing full well what the ramifications later in life might be.
Under what premise?
Open shut case. Can we get off of it? Stop trying to nail Vince McMahon for something he clearly had nothing to do with. This is what pisses me off about some of these Vince McMahon haters. You want to take him down? Go after the shit that you know or have enough proof to prove that he actually did. Get away from the steroid trial. Get off of it. He was acquitted. It's over. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, whatever saying you want to say here. Get on him for things that you know he's guilty of, or you have enough proof that he's guilty of. Because all this does is just make him seem like the victim that he paints himself as.
What was your premise? What was the premise for getting
under the
steroids?
premise that I wanted to, under the premise that I was in the big boys, the league with the big boys, and I needed to look the part. It was completely 100% my decision.
And there was a presumption.
Vince or no one told me to.
I know, but there was a. Was there not the presumption within the industry that if you wanted to get anywhere, you had to be roided out?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not Vince McMahon's fault. That's just the business. That's how it was before Vince got in. That was the way with Vince McMahon Sr. That was the way with Vern Gagne. That was the way with Eric Bischoff. That was the way with Paul Heyman. That's just the business. That's just what men did, especially back then in the 80s and 90s, to get movie roles, to get some kind of attention, notoriety on television. So don't get mad at Vince, get mad at national television.
The old expression was, let me die big.
The
You could,
I could name.
So why did you take them if you didn't need the
I worked with
steroids?
that didn't.
If you didn't need the steroids, why did you?
Vanity.
Why did you take the steroids?
Vanity.
This is no longer about Vince. I thought this was a Vince McMahon debate. Now this feels like a professional wrestling debate. We've gotten away from Vince. This man's hate for Vince McMahon is so goddamn deep. He now hates the very idea, the very sport of professional wrestling. You have gotten me to a point where I kind of side with Vince McMahon. And it makes me sick.
How many of McMahon's wrestlers didn't make it to 50 years old? How many died of drug overdoses? How many?
Too many.
Yeah, too many.
What do you mean, oh my God? This is irrelevant? Okay. I didn't indulge. I didn't indulge too many.
The people who died under Vince McMahon, it's sad that they lost their lives, but a lot of them brought that onto themselves. I will hold a lot against Vince McMahon. I'm not holding anybody's death unless their name is Owen Hart. Unless that name is Owen Hart, that right there is the only name I think Vince McMahon should share responsibility in. Because he put Owen Hart in that situation. Everybody else, when it comes to steroids, that was them. And Vince should not share any kind of blame in that particular situation.
I sat next to Vince McMahon.
How come those people who work for McMahon?
All right, is anyone gonna let anyone talk? The whole point of a debate is to actually let a point be said And then you respond to it. Holy shit. How did anybody sit through this?
But my question really
don't-
was, where are we now with Vince McMahon? Is he done with WWE, or do you think he'll make, as some people believe, a big comeback and take control again?
I don't think he has to wear a title on a piece of stationery. I think he'll always be, if not omnipresent, certainly present. People like that don't go away. You can't.
Well, also, why would he come back? Because WWE is doing so well without him. They're breaking attendance records. They're selling record numbers of merch.
Yeah,
they
but you're
are
a woman.
building up stars like they've never before. So why would? Yeah.
Why wouldn't he come back? You tell me. You're a female.
No, I said why
I
would?
have 2 daughters.
No, I'm
I
saying
have
why
2
would they bring him
granddaughters.
back? Why would
Pardon
they
me?
bring him back?
Phil, I think you misheard what Charlie said. She was saying, why would he go back? It's doing very well
sorry.
without him, is what she said.
Because it's his lifeblood. It makes his heart pump, if he has a heart.
But it's not up to him anymore.
Yeah, that might have been the greatest train wreck I've seen since Jerry Springer, honestly. So if you are somebody that was unfortunately duped into watching this entire thing, I do apologize. But if you enjoyed my reaction and you like what I had to say, give me your thoughts and perspectives on what you just heard. I guess, who was your favorite panelists? In all seriousness, Coachman, Maven were easily the best parts of this entire panel. They brought fair, honest perspectives to this, whatever this was. I can't even call it a discussion. Piers called it a debate. Debating what exactly? Yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys are having a great day as you file out, do all the YouTube things, like the video, subscribe, and click that bell to catch all my content when it comes out. Follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and donate using PayPal, Patreon, Cashapp, and Venmo. I am gonna go do something that gets my mind back together after having it melted from watching all of that. So, this is Alyx, just Alyx, signing out right here in Alyx's world. The place that is, was, and forever will be a safe space for wrestling fans like you. Bye-bye.